Okay, so let's see, we're gonna do our thing about a perfect Bayesian Nash equilibrium, right? Let's see. Okay, so just doing more and more examples. So remember the idea was, so remember this is kind of like, you know, the analog, or sort of of SP and E in games with incomplete explanation. Right? That's kind of what we're doing. I've heard, like, right now in India, there's like record temperatures, like world record temperatures now, like 120, that kind of thing. Did you, I don't know.
And Kuwait, 100, 110 is like regular.
Is that
It's
right?
like, yeah, it's just completely normal to have an entire summer that doesn't go below 100.
You're kidding?
Yeah, we had the hottest temperature, I think 2017 was recorded. I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, but it was 53,
Oh,
4 degrees. Yeah, it was really, really hot. So it's like the daily temperature would be
mhm.
40s. Like that's how
Huh.
it would be. Yeah, in the 40s, and then at night it doesn't. It's like it just stays in the 30s. It doesn't go.
Wow, wow.
It's too hot. It's a combination of because they don't. There's no forestation.
I
You
see.
can get around it by I guess planting more trees to bring
Right,
down the
right,
temperature a certain way. But there's just nothing, and it's also exposed,
Oh,
so
I see, I see.
the sun just like really fries
Oh,
everything.
good grief. Okay. I'll take it. Anyway, yeah, so subgame perfect Nash equilibrium like is defined for games with configuration, right? But sometimes it has no bottom because of the subgames, right? So we're basically saying that this is kind of like to be able to talk about, you know, what you do in a given bubble, you have to write down the beliefs and all that. Right? So anyway, so this is kind of what we're doing. So the idea is you specify beliefs and strategies together. So you have to specify the beliefs specifically. Okay, and then remember there were two criteria we had to satisfy from
What?
for the for perfect Bayesian Nash equilibrium. So if you didn't have to worry about, if you just worry about Nash equilibrium, you don't have to think about beliefs at all, you just think about strategies. But if we're doing the perfect Bayesian thing, we want to like do a back reduction, we have to put in the beliefs, right? And so-
BC
Yeah, it was BC and
and
SR.
belief
Right?
consistency.
Yeah, exactly. So belief consistency. Exactly. And what was that?
Yeah, sequential.
Sequential rationality, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Remember what these things are? What's belief consistency?
The actor acts based on their beliefs
Yeah.
and not the opposite, like very consistent.
Yeah. So the idea of belief consistency is you specify the beliefs, but those beliefs have to make sense given what
You
you
have
have
to
to do.
influence your action.
Exactly. So remember, there's also this little whenever possible clause. Whenever possible, beliefs must be consistent with people's actions. Okay. So we'll do more examples which illustrate these things. What's sequential rationality? Remember that? That's kind of simple.
Yeah, I know what it is, but
Yeah. Well, just the way, how would you say it in words?
like, I don't know, the action of players in seconds must be like, I don't know, make sense.
Yeah, exactly, right. So
You know,
it's like, given beliefs, your action must maximize expected
Yeah.
utility. That's what it is. So given beliefs, player's action. Must maximize expected utility. Okay, so this is kind of, it's really the analog of back reduction. So if you didn't have any bubbles, you would just say, you know, at this point here, I'm just choosing between here and here to choose the one which is best. But if you have a bubble, So you have to specify the beliefs, and then you have to choose which one is best given those beliefs. Okay, so it's pretty simple. Okay, so this is not really, this just sort of gets you at kind of these things. So this is my cowboy boots and Birkenstocks. Example. So the idea is here is there, let's see, okay, so there's two states of the world, okay, so you're like in a restaurant, okay, and the person coming in, you don't know whether, there could either be a mediator or a vegetarian, okay? This, you can think of this as like Austin, Texas or something. Okay, so a mediator or a vegetarian, and each one happens to have tolerability. And before in our little model of the bubbles and all that, we didn't have, we just simply said the state was a state. And when we do it often, sometimes, well, often when you do it in a tree, you want to make it look like a tree. So you say nature kind of chooses that, even though nature's not really clear. So nature's kind of like just flipping a coin saying sometimes it's mediated, sometimes vegetarian. Okay. So this person can come in, this is person one, they can either, let's see, be wearing cowboy boots or Birkenstocks. Okay. So person one is the customer, person two is the server. Person two can either serve a steak, hummus, or French fries. Okay, so let's see. This is a person one. The customer is wears cowboy boots. Okay. So what does bubble means? This bubble means that person two knows what footwear person one is wearing. Okay, it's kind of like a signal. But person one, two does not know whether we're here. In other words, person two doesn't know whether the person's a meat or vegetarian. All right, so let's say that if a person is a meat eater, and you serve them a steak, then you both are happy. If you serve the meat eater hummus, then it's not so good. And fries are kind of a safe choice for the best. Okay. Similarly, if the person's vegetarian, if you serve steak, it's 0. Hummus, it's 6. Makes sense? It's just kind of a simple thing. Now, if there's Birkenstock, so this is kind of behind it, I guess. Similarly, person two can either serve steak, hummus, or French fries. Okay. And if the person comes in with Birkenstocks and you serve the steak, well, the preferences don't care about your footwear. So the footwear doesn't affect your preferences. The only thing which affects your preferences is whether you're meat eater or vegetarian. And so this is also 6. Does this make sense? Okay, so if the person, the meat eater, comes in with Birkenstocks, you serve them a steak, then it's 6. Similarly for this. 0, 6. Okay. Similarly, if the vegetarian comes in wearing Birkenstocks and you give them a hummus, then it's 6. Okay, how do I solve this game? Okay, how do I find all natural code here? Okay, find all natural code. What do you use? Yeah, you can do backward induction, but
Beliefs, I guess?
yeah. So actually, all the beliefs are just for this PB&E stuff. To find Nash equilibrium, you don't have to do any beliefs. You just simply write down the strategies. So you'd write down something like, how many strategies does one have? Or it's like it's whether the meat eater wears cowboy boots or Birkenstocks or not. So right? So there are 4 possible strategies for person one. I think it's like C, 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 D, C, C. Makes sense? This is what if meat eater, if vegetarian. Okay, how about the person two, the server? 9, exactly. They could do S here, SHF here, SHF here, right? And this is not the same. So if I were to write it, it'd be something like this. It would look something like, I don't know, S, 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 S. That would mean you serve the steak to everybody. Right, so this, when I'm doing this S, 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 it means I'm serving sake, so this is not dependent on the MV, right? It just depends on the footwear. Right, so this is like if power boots equal Birkenstocks. So person two's conditions are different from the person one's, right? Because remember, person two, they know different things, right? Two doesn't know whether one's a vegetarian. Okay. So there's going to be 9, but so we have this long thing. SS, Okay, so I'm not going to do the whole thing, but you could do it that way, and that would be perfectly fine for Angela. Okay, so let's do that. Or okay, we're not going to do that because it's time consuming. Let's think about all the PB&Es though. Okay, if I were to write down the PB&Es, what I'm going to do is we're just going to consider all possible things person 1 could do, etc., and then just see what happens. Okay, so let's say that person 1 plays this. Everyone wears cowboy boots. Okay, so maybe this is more like Nashville or something. Who wears cowboy boots? I know you can buy cowboy boots in Nashville. Okay, if this is person 1's strategy, then we have to put in the beliefs in, right? We specify those. So from belief consistency, what do the beliefs have to be here? So we have to write down beliefs here. What's the probability this node is actually reached? 1.5, right? This is if the mediator wears cowboy boots. Yeah? What's the probability this node is reached? Also 1.5. This sort of makes sense. If everyone in the town wears cowboy boots and you see somebody walking with cowboy boots, it's exactly the same as the population, right? Nothing is learned. Okay. Well, I think we have to write down beliefs here. What beliefs do you want to put in there? Well, what's the probability that J occurs? 0, right? What's the probability this occurs? Also 0, right? So that's true, that's what actually happens, but the only problem is that's not a belief. You can't do 0, 0. That's like my example about the NBA, right? If the NBA were to draft me, I'd still have to have some belief about whether I'd be drafted to the Miami Heat or the Pacers or something. So this is not a 0, 0 thing, so, but we have to put in something, right? So what do you want to put in? Doesn't matter. Just, this is that whenever possible clause, right? No, these beliefs are not pinned down by actions, right? So literally anything would be consistent. Okay? You could do 1, 0, 0, 1, half, something like that. Actually. What do you want to do? You do 0, 1? Let's try that. These beliefs are consistent, right? These beliefs follow that whenever possible constraint, because like whenever possible clause, because these things never happen, right? So you can, any belief would be okay. These beliefs are pinned down by someone's actions. Okay. Now let's do sequential rationality. If person 2 has these beliefs, what do? If they choose S, they get 6 half the time and 0 half the time, so it's 3. And if they do H, they get 6 times 0, so it's 3. But still, I think they get better by doing the fries, right? Okay. I'm not sure if the fries are fried in
Yeah.
meat-based oil or plant-based oil.
It's usually vegetable oil, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I think this is right. How about here? What is the sequential rationality of this? Person 2 believes are here, so therefore, person 2. So no one in the world wears Birkenstocks. Someone shows up in the cafe wearing Birkenstocks. The server has to make some belief. That person believes that person's got to be vegetarian. If I'm just saying that. So given that, what is it? Hummus, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And 6 is bigger than 4, 0. Okay. There's a risk that you'll give the mediator hummus, but you don't believe it's okay. All right, so we have sequential rationality here, sequential rationality here. We have belief consistency. Is there anything else we need to check? Still something we haven't. We check sequential rationality. Sequential rationality. We check belief consistency. Okay. Yeah, exactly right. We check person 2 sequential rationality, but we didn't check what 1 does here. Okay, so this is the one, the meat eater walks in wearing the cowboy boots. What did they get? They get 6. If they were to walk in instead wear Birkenstocks, what would they get in the end? They would get 0. So this person is sequential reaction. Right? Have it over here. Okay, they're getting 4, right? If they were to deviate, do this, what would they get? 6, right? So this is not sequential reaction. Right? This sort of makes sense, right? If you're the vegetarian, everybody in the world wears cowboy boots, but you think that if I show up wearing Birkenstocks, I'll definitely get hummus, then you would deviate from that. Right? Make sense? So this is, as I've written it down, is not a PBNE. Okay, so what would make it, can I make it a PBNE?
If one wears Birkenstocks?
Sorry?
If one wears Birkenstocks?
Here?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, we could do that. Oh, okay, the way we all started this whole thing was assuming that one plays CC.
All right.
Yeah, we'll do that next. We can do that.
Oh,
But-
then we gotta change the rules.
Yeah, yeah, if we change these beliefs, right?
Yeah.
So let's say that we change them to 1, 0. Would that work? Okay, if that was that way, what would 2 do if they saw somebody in the Birkenstocks? Here, the Birkenstock, only here, no one wears a Birkenstocks, but if someone does come in with Birkenstocks, you think, oh, they're a meat eater.
Yeah, they would sort of states.
They'll mistake, right? Hmm? Is this gonna be sequential reaction? No, why? Because,
If person 1 is a meat eater.
Yeah,
they
they'd rather do
usually-
exactly.
Yeah.
yeah, so that's not gonna be good either, but I think we can put some beliefs here which will make it work. What do you wanna put in there? Yeah, 1/2. It doesn't actually have to be exactly half. The main thing is it simply has to make make F the thing you do, right? So if it was half-half, what does person 2 do if they see the Birkenstocks? Use the fries also, right? Okay. All right, so now person 2 is being sequential reaction here, sequential reaction here. Beliefs are consistent. Again, these things, we have no choice but specified in these beliefs. These we have full choice over. Okay, this sort of makes sense. Just those are there. Does person gain by deviating here? They get 4 here. If they deviated, what would they get? 4, right? Here they're getting 4 if they deviated. Right, so this is a PB. What exactly is the PB? It's the collection of all this stuff, specification, what you do at every node, plus the beliefs. So it makes sense, right? It's saying that in a world where everyone wears cowboy boots, okay, you show up that people should give you fries, okay? And you think, well, this would not be sustained if someone deviated by wearing Birkenstocks and someone says, oh, you must be a meat eater, right? If that was the belief someone had, then this would not be sustained. However, if people believe, oh, hey, you're the first person to come into my shop with my restaurant with Birkenstocks, but I think you're probably just like everyone else, we'll give you fries. If that's the situation, then it's all sustainable. Okay, so this is a few. Makes sense? Okay, what would be some other ones that people, you already said this? What would be another kind of, another PB&E? Sorry. Oops. Okay. All right. What would be another one? There's actually like 4, so we could.
If everybody wears Birkenstocks.
Yeah, exactly. If everyone wore Birkenstocks, there'd be something very similar to this. It's almost exactly the same. Everyone wore Birkenstocks, and you would have like half-half beliefs here. You would have half-half beliefs here, and then the server always gets one choice. Okay, so there's one like that. So how about, is there another possibility?
Only leaders wear one type of shoe.
Yeah. Exactly. So maybe this is where everyone wears the same kind of shoe, but maybe they wear different, right? 6. This was 6. Okay. Say for example, I don't know, the what was it? This is meat eaters, vegetarians. Say all the meat eaters were Birkenstocks, and all the vegetarians were Cowboy boots. Okay. We'll play against stereotype. In Austin, this is actually conceivable, right? Maybe. What are the beliefs here? If you give them-
Zero.
Yeah, exactly right. This never happens, right? Given what person one does, you know, this never happens and this happens with what? Well, this actually happens with probability of half, right? That's how often it actually happens, right? But conditional on seeing the cowboy boots, you have to normalize, right? You add it, this becomes 0, 1. Does that make sense? That's not 0, that's 0, 1. Because 0, this is also not a belief per se either, right? It has to add to 1. So you normalize. This is Bayes' rule pattern, right? You need to divide by the total. Okay, what beliefs go here too? Yeah, so this is simply 1/2 0, right? But when you normalize, you make it belief is 1, 0. Okay, so that's belief consistent. In this particular case, all the beliefs were pinned down by belief consistency, right? Given the people's actions, this is the only beliefs you could possibly have. That's different from here, right? Here, this person could have had different beliefs. Okay, now let's check sequential rationality. What does 2 do here? Given these beliefs? So if they see something coming in with cowboy boots,
Serve hummus.
yeah, hummus, right? Only vegetarians in this society wear cowboy boots, we give them hummus, right? My belief is we're surely over here, 1, 6 is bigger than 4. Okay, how about over here? What if I see with the Birkenstocks? I believe we're here for sure. Person 2 chooses what? The state, right? Makes sense? Okay, we haven't checked. So this is a PBD, I think, right? We haven't checked this. Oh, we have person 1 doing this. What does 1 choose here? We have to check that sequential relation. Yeah, they're getting 6, right?
Yeah.
And then if they were to deviate, they would get 0. So this person's sequential ration here. How about here? Yeah, they're getting the 6. If they're deviating, they get 0. Okay, so this is PBD. Okay. And similarly, there's another very similar one where it's, the meat eaters wear cowboy boots and the vegetarians. So this all makes sense in a way, right? Because like you could imagine a society where basically everyone wears the same kind of footwear, so therefore you cannot make an assumption based on that, right? If everyone wears the same kind of footwear, if somebody walks in, you don't think, their footwear indicates whether they're meat or vegetarian. It just doesn't, because everyone's wearing these things. And so they just give everyone fries at the end. Right? And again, that's also sustained by the idea of if someone wears a different kind of footwear, you don't make a big deal of it. But you could also have a society where there is actually kind of signaling or something based on footwear. And then you think, okay, well, all the meat eaters in my town wear Birkenstocks, all the vegetarians wear cowboy boots. Someone walks in, I just, I give it what they want. And then we think about what's the point of view from their point of view. If it's understood that your shoes indicate whether you're vegetarian, meat eater or vegetarian, then you actually are okay with that, right? You want to, I'm happy to show up with my Birkenstocks knowing that I'll be given a steak. And so it all kind of fits together. It makes sense. So like, here the beliefs depend on what people do, but also, the beliefs come from what people's actions are, right? But given that people believe something, you're okay with acting in a way such that people believe it. Does that make sense? That's kind of the whole logic on this, right? So in other words, whether we're in this world or this world, both are plausible, right? And I don't necessarily know whether I'm in this world or this world, just like I don't know whether I'm in one national group or another. But both are plausible, both kind of are consistent with themselves. Okay, makes sense. Okay, so if sometimes you see the word, sometimes you see the word pooling and equilibrium, that's what this is. I mean, the pooling equilibrium means that everyone kind of does the same thing, so you can't really distinguish them. And in this sense, sometimes people use the word separating. Okay, so here, different, sometimes people use the term types, different types of people do different things, so therefore they separate. It's all super simple. So does it make sense, Ben?
They don't actually care what shoe they wear, though, right? As long as
Right.
there's the separation.
Right, so for example, what would mess up the story? Like, for example, if say that people really did care, like, about, so you say cowboy boots suddenly became more fashionable or something like that. So say that you really do want, you get a big bonus from getting cowboy boots, in addition to your foot thing. So maybe that a 16 would be.
Right. So there's some kind of, stylistic consistency or,
Yeah, exactly.
in-group.
Yeah, exactly, right. So say that everything is the same, except just by wearing cowboy boots, I get a 10 more. Right? Now, is this going to work? Okay, let's check.
Well, because you deviate to wearing cowboy boots if you're a mediator.
Yeah, exactly right. I think this person now would, instead of getting the 6, they would do this. Yeah. So you could have it. You could care about your foot a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah.
Right? If you cared about it a huge amount, like in a year, then this would not be an equilibrium anymore, right? I think then you would be kind of this way. Yeah. It sort of makes sense too, right? If,
Yeah.
the whole point of a signal is it can't be so strong that everyone wants to do it, because then it would not be a signal anymore. Right? Okay. In fact, I think all you need to do to get rid of this as a PB&E is to make this 6 something bigger than a 6. Even just this, all you have to do is just change this one. Oh, that's interesting.
So it doesn't take much.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think I'm going to say something, and I'm thinking now, is that true? To say this is a 6 instead of 7, could I have a separating equilibrium? I'm going to actually that's right. Because we're going to engage in what if exercises, which is kind of the whole point of modeling. Let's do that.
We would need to work out the beliefs too, right? Is that where you're headed?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Is 2, even if I guess I was a little bit stuck on that. If 2 believes that will never happen, they won't actually, does that make sense? Like, they
Yeah.
won't actually carry out that action.
You're saying like, if this 6 becomes a 7, right? You're saying?
Or 16, or like, even
Yeah.
what we had before.
Right.
So if player 2 has 0 beliefs over that,
Oh,
what does it mean to have 0 beliefs
Okay.
over something that,
all right.
yeah.
If this in fact were a 16, so let's bring it back to what we did before. This means you get 10 from wearing cowboy boots.
Yeah.
What's wrong with this picture? Well, one thing wrong with the picture is that 1 wants to deviate here. Right, but the other, you might notice say nothing wrong with the picture is 2's beliefs are wrong in some sense.
Right.
Given what 1 does, so given that 1 really wants for cowboy boots, person 2 should no longer believe this.
Sure.
So, but the way that's handled is, we have to specify everything and then check it. So here we're specifying that person 1, this person's wearing Birkenstocks and this person's wearing cowboy boots, given that these beliefs are correct. Okay,
Okay.
so,
Okay.
but let's just solve it now. Let me see if I can, let's see how I can get this to work. Okay, let's do the whole thing with a 16. This is going to be 16. 16. All right, let's see this. Now, is it true that we could get a separate equilibrium here? Okay, so we just said that this is, if in this game this is not, right? What would be 1? Oh, okay, well, we can also just talk about the thing you're saying. Okay, it seems like the only beliefs here should be 1, 0. That's what you're kind of saying, right?
Right.
Right, if you so,
So yeah, if we know the meat eater will wear cowboy boots,
Yeah,
then we'll never get the case where what?
yeah, so in this world, everyone loves cowboy boots better than Birkenstocks, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're thinking that this is going to happen, but then this belief would come out of what? This? That's kind of what it would have to come out of, right? So again, everyone in the world loves cowboy boots. Okay, so you get the 10 by, okay, all right, this is what the beliefs would be. Okay, that makes sense. What would the beliefs be here? Yeah, given what person 1 is doing, here's 0, 1, right? Okay. All right, so in other words, it's not just we have to specify the beliefs here, we have to specify the beliefs everywhere and kind of make sure the whole thing makes sense. Okay, now I think I specified everything. I specified beliefs, specified actions. Is this a PB&E? Okay, oh, we got to, we've given 2's beliefs here. No, what does person 2 do here? We haven't specified.
The service stick.
Should stick, right? Because you believe over here we get 16. Remember now, person 2 doesn't care. Person 2 is doing that 6. Okay. Given these beliefs, what does 2 do? Hummus, I think, ranks between 6 is biggest. Okay. Given this, what does 1 do? Oh, we write down C, right? I think everything's specified. Is this a PB&E? Okay, 2's beliefs are okay. 1's beliefs are okay, given what 1's doing. We have belief consistency. Do we have sequential rationality? We just figured out, right, this is 2 sequential rational here, 2 sequential rational here. What have we checked? 1, right? So here's 1. 1's getting to 16 if they were to deviate. Oh, yeah, this is almost here too, right? They would get 0, right? Okay, this is like the worst thing. You don't wear you don't get the right footwear. You don't like the footwear. You also don't like the food. That's the worst thing.
Because player 2 knows how much you like cowboy boots, right? Is kind of the idea.
Yeah. No, I mean, no, yeah. I mean, why you would get hurt? You mean? Is that?
I just, we can move on. I guess I was just trying to get to a little bit of intuition.
No. We'll just work it out, the whole thing out. So,
Yeah.
okay, okay, all right. Let's just work it out first.
Yeah.
What does 1 do here? Okay, they're getting the 6, right? If they were to deviate, they would get what? The 10. Right? So, this is not right. In a world where everyone loves cowboy boots, right? You could say if person 2 sees somebody wearing cowboy boots, they must think, oh, the meteor must be wearing the cowboy boots. But the problem is, the vegetarian also wants to wear the cowboy boots because everyone loves cowboy boots. So that you got to think about that. I guess that's the idea. But
Sure.
it's not just what one, but everyone. So yeah. So
But we can only pull it.
yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. If everyone's preference is so strong, so preference for cowboy boots is so strong, I think the only one would have is something like that over there, right? And does that make sense? So I guess, in other words, I think say that the preference for cowboy boots was not as strong as the preference for food. Instead, if it's a 10, it's a 5. You see what I'm saying? Then this would be a 5 instead, right? And then you could do what you're talking about. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's just interesting that
Uh-huh.
to me it seems like it's agnostic of what 2 believes about. I mean, it's not, of course, because it totally depends on what 2 believes about 1.
Right.
It's just interesting that the vegetarians still do that there is a pulling equilibrium. I guess is what I'm getting at. If that makes sense.
Oh,
Like that that vegetarians don't have a way of separating themselves and making themselves better.
oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So if we go back to the original thing, the vegetarians do have a way of separating themselves. If only the vegetarians do Birkenstocks, right?
Right.
So it's not like they can't.
Right.
They could. The only problem is they do not want to do that. That's the problem,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because because they care more about
Yeah. Sure.
exactly.
Yeah.
And if this were a 5, it means they do care about it, but they care about the food more, so they are willing to do it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I think that's okay. So this is not a PB&E. I think the only let's check. Could there be one where they wear Birkenstocks? Okay, if this is the case, I think this is kind of obvious. What are the beliefs here?
Half,
Half, Given that people are gonna play person two, so they see what Birkenstocks is what? I think fries, right? What about the beliefs here? We gotta put something down here. This is a 0-0 situation, right?
Yeah, could be
What do you wanna put?
1-0.
Another 1-0, okay. Given this person two plays what? I think state, right? Oops. Okay, is this a SPNE? We have belief consistency. We have sequential rationality here. I think we also have it here. But then we have to think about what one's thinks. Is one doing the best response here? No, they're running. I think in this case, if people like the cowboy boots so much, they're just good. Cowboy boots, I think, dominates everything else. So one's always going to just go. Yeah, so I think the only national ability, only PBNU would be. I think where the other one does cowboy boots. Okay. All right, and then these beliefs are going to be what? Okay, these beliefs could be anything, right? This is one of those 0-0 situations. What do you want to put there? I don't know.
1/3, 2/3.
Let's break out a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's live a little. So what does person two do here? Okay. If they choose S, they're getting 6 Fs part of the time, 0 half the time, that's 3. If they're getting H, there's, so they want to do what?
Right.
And fries. Okay, what does 2 do here? Oh, we have to actually do some math now. 6 times after 3 is 2, so it's 2 from getting S. 4 from being H, and 4. Oh, it's a tie.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? It could be either H or F.
Let's say almost.
Let's just do something different. All right, so let's see. Belief consistency we have. Sequential rationality here, sequential rationality. What about person 1? Is playing C best. They're getting 16. If they're to deviate, they'd get 0. Right? Here, they're playing the C. They're getting 10. If they're deviating, they get 16. So this is a P.
Aren't they getting
Huh?
14?
Oh, no?
I think they're getting 14, not 10.
Oh, no, you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. They're getting 14. Thank you.
Still more.
14, right?
Okay, still more.
So-
Still more. Because
So
they're.
but so like let's say we picked hummus. What if we instead play fries, and the benefit from we could make what I'm getting at is so that would put us in the 4-4 case, and could we adjust downward the benefit, the utility, whatever, from wearing cowboy boots such that that would change?
Yeah, yeah. No, I get it. I see what you're saying. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So, exactly. So,
Sorry.
no. I'm trying to think of what. So what you're thinking is we could make this happen, right? So person 1, 2 would play F here, right? So you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
'Cause
And then-
we just said that it's a coin toss, right?
Right. Okay, yeah, exactly. Okay, let's do that. Anyway, so this is a PVD, just letting you know, right? So the question is, can we do something else? This, and could we, if this bonus was not as strong,
Right. If it was, I mean,
well, okay. One thing is true. So say there's no bonus at all, then it would work, right? Say there's no negative bonus, which means that vegetarians do not like wearing cowboy boots, right? So then that would be enough to move it this way. Then that would keep this provision in PVD. Yeah. That's right. Does this make sense, kind of? So, I mean, there's kind of, when you play around this, that's what kind of gets a model going in your head. You think, so, like, this is not implausible just as a way of thinking about social signaling or whatever, or just anything, like wearing clothes or whatever, right? So, in our back of our mind is thinking, like, if people really care a lot about, first of all, if people really care a lot about one thing versus another, there's no way you'll have signaling, right? Because everyone will simply just do their thing, right? Another thing is, like, if for example, the meat eaters really like cowboy boots as well as steak, and if the vegetarians really like Birkenstocks as well as hummus, then you could get the separating thing to work out, right? Does that make sense? So, in some sense, it's like, the preference for the signal and the preference for the food must be kind of aligned in some sense, right? And if they're, yeah, so if they're aligned, then you can get separation. If they're not aligned, you might not be able to get separation. Right? If the preference for the signal is way too strong, you will not get separation because they're, so that's the kind of thing, it sort of makes sense, right? And so, maybe we'll do some examples. So that's what you do actually when you write down a law. You think, hey, what if this happens? What if this changes around this? So then you can actually like bring that to the real world and say, hey, you know, I don't know, like, what's some examples of this? You know, like clothing or whatever. I don't know. You know, there have been large changes. I mean, you know, one big thing is like wearing, you know, headscarf, that kind of stuff. You know, that's changed a lot. You know, and because right. One of the things when you wear a certain piece of clothing is not just whether you like it, but also what people infer from you when you wear it, right? And that depends on who else is wearing it, right? So it's the same kind of thing, right? So it is something you could presumably take to. I mean, maybe pronouns, that's another thing, right? So I think pronouns are now not as, a lot of people do it, but it's not so strong as if you don't do it, people will assume something based on you not doing it. See what I'm saying? Right? But it's conceivable that could happen. Right? It's conceivable that, well, for example, like when I was in the job market, this is another graduate student, our graduate placement director said, you should put your birth date on your CVs, which is illegal and just stupid advice, but he told us that. And then the oldest people in our class immediately said, well, we're not going to do that because we're going to look like old, or I don't know. But then once you're in this situation, like if 80% of people have this birthdays on their CVs and you don't see them on their B30, you then start, you know, inferring things. Because that's kind of this, right? So the fact that he said that really kind of was bad and messed people up. Right? So if no one put down their birth date, then no one would infer anything based on that. But if a bunch of people are, then, so I don't know. I think I put mine in.
It does kind of make you think about like the signals that are chosen too. People have multiple signals that are available to them. That
Right.
they might sacrifice a bit of like that intrinsic sort of utility
Oh, yeah.
from that signal to perhaps like end up in a better.
Oh yeah, indeed.
I don't know. Yeah.
No, that's a good point. It's true.
Like
But-
people quote unquote tone down like religious appeal or whatever in
Right.
some circumstances, I guess, and that maybe helps.
Oh,
them.
that's interesting.
That might be purposes over different things rather than just like the outcome itself. It might be over like some other dimension of like social acceptedness
Right.
or whatever. But maybe, yeah.
It's kind of like you could have two or three or four more of these things, right?
Yeah, like if people think cowboy boots are too over the top, or like a belt buckle is it or something. I don't know, yeah.
Right.
But sorry.
He used to, I noticed I taught this in undergraduate class, and he said, one student said, you know, my roommate, he has like one of those D20 dice on his desk. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Like a Dungeons and Dragons.
It's a Dungeons and Dragons, it's like a 20-sided dice. And he does that because he wants to show people that he's into gaming, but he doesn't want to look like a complete dork. So it's kind of like a subtle, like, as opposed to putting a big like poster of Dungeons and Dragons. So
Gets
like,
the job done without.
yeah, exactly right. So there should be a theory of that in some sense, right? I've never actually seen it, but maybe it's like what you're talking about, right? Like,
Is
yeah.
it strong enough to get you there? But
yeah, exactly, right. I mean, there's a historian in our department who talked about the French Revolution, and she was saying a very important part of that was people wearing the colors of the French Revolution, you know, red, white, and blue. And so the idea is that you were allowed to show your allegiance, but at the same time, you didn't have to make a real super narrow partisan statement. You know, it just said, I'm for the revolution, as opposed to like which faction you're in. So that's interesting too.
guess maybe we don't need game theory for that, given how,
Huh?
I don't know, intuitive it is, but maybe.
Well, no, maybe, I mean, you know, maybe you don't, but maybe,
Yeah.
I mean,
Does it lead you to like counterintuitive?
well, I mean, okay, so one result you could have, which is a little counterintuitive, I think you could get a model something like, say I used to signal something, like I'm going to this, you know, I wear my cowboy boots, I go into the restaurant, and, you know, I get served a steak or something like that, okay? But now some other people who I do not know or care about at all suddenly loves cowboy boots. So they start showing up to restaurants and then they like, you know, hummus or whatever. So I show up, people are giving me hummus. I don't like that anymore or something, right? So I'm affected by people who have nothing to do with me, right? And it's not like, you know, they have the right to make them change or something like that, right? But if they're doing it, then it affects somebody else's belief. Now it affects my preference about wearing cowboy boots or not, right? So maybe then I'll move to something else, like the belt buckle or something, you know, like so. So, I don't know. So I think that's, you know, I think that, like, have you heard of Pepper the Frog? Do you know what I'm talking about? There's this whole right-wing war on memes.
Oh, Pepe, yeah.
Pepe
yeah,
the Frog?
Sorry, that's the pepper, yeah, yeah.
No, yeah, so I feel almost embarrassed talking about it, but I think this is a real thing. So Pepper the Frog is just some stupid cartoon frog. The guy who invented it said, this is just, I'm just making a silly like frog. And so he made little memes with it. And then white nationalists started making Pepe the Frog a big thing. And so like,
Oh, the green.
yeah, the green, yeah.
Now I-
So therefore, like the original creator of Pepper the Frog says, I really don't like this, but there's nothing he can do about it. You know, of course he can protect his intellectual property, right? But the fact that like lots of white supremacists are using Pepper the Frog, now I can no longer use Pepper the Frog as just some sort of stupid thing. Like I think it has a meaning just because people are doing it, and that meaning is reasonable, right? Given the population. So maybe there's a model like that. I don't know. I mean, I feel this very deep, not deeply, but I was, I was in an orchestra where they invited a radio host who's pretty right wing, and this, I don't know if you know him. He's in Los Angeles radio host, and this is actually,
It's not Larry Elder, is it?
it's the guy who's close to Larry Elder. His name is this is like show and tell day. This guy's name, I'm blanking on his name.
I'm surprised that there are a lot of right-wing people in LA or California.
Yeah.
You don't have to dig deep into our history. Yeah. Surf Nazi doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Long Beach is like where a lot of like Rise Against movement, like some of these, like some
Yeah,
of
yeah,
those
yeah.
extreme groups are located in Orange County.
Traditionally, LA was actually kind of a hotbed of this, like back in the day. You know, a lot of the
I know like
Orange
Martin
County.
King, O.J. Simpson, like that kind of stuff, because
yeah.
like we see it on the news, but I didn't know, like I just thought, in my mind, like California seems like everyone's liberal.
Oh no! California was like kind of a white supremacist place. You know, it voted for Nixon. It was reliably the Republican
He
until
was the governor, right?
yeah. Reagan, all those folks. You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, this is Dennis Prager. This is the guy.
Oh, sure, okay.
You know him? I don't know. So one of our our orchestra conductor's friends is Dennis Prager or something. So he said, let's do this concert. And Dennis Prager, this thing, made a big deal about loving Haydn, who's of course a very important classical composer. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, are they trying to brand Haydn as like some sort of white supremacist guy?
You already have Wagner, then you just.
Exactly. But yeah. So I was in this orchestra. I said, we can't do this anymore. But in the I think that's good. You can kind of try to do that. Like if you can say, oh, Haydn is not my white supremacist thing, then if other people kind of grab onto that. Let's see. They made the national. Let's see. Yeah, it was NPR. Let's see who he was. That's the guy. And yeah, this is my symphony. It's like my little Smalltown Symphony. I think I'm quoted in here somewhere. Yeah, let's see. So me and Andrew Apter boycott.
Good for you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So, so say that all like white nationalists say, we really love Haydn or something, even though most people don't know who he is or something. Then anybody who puts Haydn on the menu has to think, are people thinking that I'm a white nationalist? That's just, there's not much you can do about that. So, anyway.
It's also like, why would you want to be associated with someone like that? It seems clear that, just do your own thing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, why did the orchestra decide to do this?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
because I read what you guys said, and like he doesn't have any musical experience.
Right.
So why was he even like this?
Well, our orchestra conductor, who now, he passed away, he was a friend of him and thought we could get a lot of big crowd in. And we booked Disney Hall. Some people in the orchestra wanted to do this just because they wanted to play in Disney Hall, which I thought was sad. But I guess it's nice to play in Disney Hall or whatever. But anyway, yeah. I'm gonna look up. This is the ADL, Anti-Defamation League on Pepper the Frog. So this is like ridiculous, right? But I mean, it's like, you know, that's kind of, so I don't think people really, you know, took this as so, this is to me a little bit of a new kind of cultural tactic in a way. I don't know. You know, I don't think of other things being taken over by other, like, I don't know if leftists ever did this. Like leftists ever take over something, you know, like saying, I don't know, to kind of give something new meaning. I don't know.
I mean, there's been sort of trickling of stuff like this in the past, right? Like something becomes kind of a niche symbol or
Right.
or meme, and it kind of like becomes more diffuse over time and kind of loses its.
Yeah, I guess so.
But
Well, long hair for something like, you know,
sure.
yeah.
But yeah, like full on co-optation, I guess. Would be a little
Yeah.
rare.
Yeah.
I don't know. You could make the argument about the term queer.
Yeah, of course, right, exactly. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I don't think that's-
So that's an example. If you take something which seems derogatory and make it underogatory, as opposed to the Pepper the Frog thing is take something underogatory and make it derogatory. Anyway, yeah, exactly. Maybe there's some theory behind that. That's all I'm saying. Maybe if we the right examples. Yeah.
A lot of like authoritarian
Uh-huh.
strategies.
Like what?
Sort of,
Yeah.
take something innocuous and government, use it for a government.
Oh, I see.
There is a theory about that.
Okay.
I mean, like, that's pro-government.
Yeah, pro-government.
Like, make it a symbol, like, have
Okay.
it suddenly be like, this is a symbol. If you
Like
use it-
authoritarian governments and entertainment or sports industry always like very closely connected.
Right.
They have these symbols
Right.
that people associate positive image with, so they can grab on.
I see. Interesting.
I mean, even like the NFL in the U.S. is like kind of the military for a long time has used the NFL.
Oh, right.
as sort of like how many flyovers you see at football.
Oh, right.
games. You know, a lot of troop saluting and all that kind of stuff. Even
Right.
more so than in other. Like you don't see that in the NBA.
Right. Yeah.
It's not co-optation, I guess, but it's
Right.
just marketing. I guess.
Yeah. Interesting. I don't know. Yeah. This is a bit of a side, but like, why is the NFL like that as opposed to the NBA? Because it's not like the players are that different. I think it's more the owners or something. I don't know.
I think it's the fan base.
Oh, I see.
But yeah, I mean, I think it is the owners too.
Right.
I think we've seen. I don't know. Nobody's like polling NFL fans, but
Right.
like, the stances the owners took, I think, on Ewing and whatnot, were, I think, in large part a reflection just of their
Oh, the fans.
group.
Oh, I see.
I would argue. I don't know.
Maybe somebody should, that would be cool.
I'm sure somebody has. It's just like what's the data, but yeah, I mean, it'd be an
Right.
interesting study.
Right.
You know, it's not the most liberal bunch, billionaire owners football team.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Are, like, would some sports be attractive to different, like, groups of people in the US?
I think they are. I mean, that's the empirical.
Right.
Yeah.
But the hockey, is that seen as more? I mean, some of it's ethnic, right? But not too many African Americans watch hockey, for example, right? But is hockey seen as more conservative than the NFL? I'm thinking not, right?
Maybe maybe hockey's regional. Maybe like people that live closer to Canada.
People don't really watch hockey.
It's just hockey's just not a thing.
It's kind of like
Baseball, I was surprised that baseball is like the most expensive sport, but I don't know, like, I hear more people talk about NFL and NBA than I do about
Yeah.
baseball. I don't even know like what the baseball association is saying.
Yeah, exactly right.
baseball's pretty popular now. I mean, NASCAR is too.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, baseball. Yeah, you don't think of big political things in baseball at all, right?
Yeah.
I wonder what that is. Okay. Let me do another example then. Okay. Okay, so this is another example. This is kind of a classic one. Well, we probably won't get to the whole thing. so this is market for lemons. And there's many analogs, and this is usually attributed to this guy George Arkeloff, who's still alive. And this is like, you could have figured this out. If you'd written this 1980 or something, you would get a Nobel Prize too. So you basically just sort of stumbled upon this or whatever. This is, it's a pretty important thing. So the market for lemons is basically saying, okay, it's basically saying how does incomplete information affect trade? Right. So the idea is there's a seller, a buyer, okay, and the car is they're selling. They're trying to trade over a car, and the car can either be bad or good. Okay. If the car is good, then it's worth 1 to the seller and 3 to the buyer. If it's a good car, it's worth 5 to the seller and 7 to the buyer. Okay, so this is the underlying thing. And you look at this and you say, well, it seems like trade should happen, yes? Because if it's a bad car, the buyer wants more than the seller. Like they could probably sell it at a price of 2 or something like that, right? They sell it at a price of 2, the seller gets more than what it's worth to them. The buyer, is happy to buy it too. If it's a good car, they could probably sell it at the price of 6. Yeah, buyer. So it should be no problem. Okay, so let's first do the example where there's no incomplete information. So say that nature, say it's either a bad or good car. Each one happens to probably have. I'm going to write it this way. So then the seller can offer 2, 4, or 6 as a price. And given that, the buyer can either accept or reject. If it's a bad car, the seller offers 2 and the buyer accepts. Oh, so the reject is easy. Anytime there's a rejection, then it's just 0, 0. Okay, because nothing happens. Okay, if the seller is a bad car, the seller offers 2, the buyer accepts it. Or the payoffs. It's a bad car, right? So it was a price of 2, so the seller gets a net profit of what? 1, right? Because they got 2 and they sold it, it's worth it 1. Yeah. So 2 minus 1, so it's 1. What's the buyer's? 1, right? Because they bought something which is worth 3 to them, the price 1. Okay. How about this? It's a seller's cost of 4.
3 minus 1.
Yeah, so this is good for the seller, right? Because they got $4 in cash and went to lose $1. And then what about this? This is the best thing for the seller. I think this is 5 minus 3? Yeah. Okay, how about this? This is a good car. Seller offers 2, the buyer buys it. This is really good for the buyer. Buyer's thing is what? 5, right?
So at the very first note, is that 1, 1 or 1 negative 1?
This one here, 1. Oh, this is 1.
1?
Yeah, I think, right? Because this is the car's worth 3. It's a bad car. The seller offers 2. The buyer takes it. So the buyer gets a car worth 3 at a cost of 2. The seller gets 2 at the cost of 1. Okay, good car. Seller offers 2. The buyer accepts it. Okay, the seller gets $2 in cash, but loses 5, right? So it's a minus 3. And the buyer gets a good deal, and it gets what? 5. How about here? This is going to be what? Minus 1, 3, right? The seller, gets 4, but loses 5. Buyer gets 7, loses 4. How about here?
1,
1. This comes. Okay. All right. Let's just solve this. This is no incomplete information. We'll just backward induct. What does the buyer do here? Accepts. So where are we here? Rejects here. Rejects here is big minus 3. How about here? Accepts. This is the best deal for the buyer. Accepts. How about here? Accepts, right, one's bigger. Okay, what does the seller do here? If it offers 2, it gets 1 again, right? So what if it offers 6, the seller, it's not accepted, right?
Oh.
The buyer knows.
Yeah.
So if they offer 6, then there'll be no sale, so 0. Right? So similar to 4. 2, exactly, right? So the seller offers 2, it's not the best deal for them, but it's still better than offering more, because you offer more than the other person say got it, sounds like the question. How about over here? This is over here. 6, right, exactly. It's a good car. It could, of course, the buyer will take 2, but it's not a good price to sell it, so the seller will go over 6. Okay, so, will trade take place? Yeah, right? It's not a big deal, like I said before. In every state of the world, the buyer likes it more than the seller, so trade will take place. No problem. How about if both people don't know whether it's a good or bad car? Okay, so you're going to go this bubble. Okay. The way this is going to work is like, the seller doesn't know whether it's bad or good, so there's a bubble like that too. But the buyer also, there's a bubble here, right? Because the buyer doesn't know whether, so the buyer knows the offer, right? But the buyer doesn't know whether there's an offer for a good car or bad. This is just one. This is another bubble, right? So 3 negative 1, so this is 0, 0. And 1, 3, 0, 0. And this is another one. This is 5 and 3. And 0. This is 1, 1, 0. Okay. I think it's all okay. Does it make sense? I just put a lot of bubbles. It's the same tree as that, I just put the bubbles because nobody knows where the car is, whether the car is good or bad. Okay. What do you think will happen? Okay, do you want to do PB&E? Okay, so what are the beliefs here for the seller? They have to be half-half, right? There's, nature doesn't, it's just mechanistic, so it's definitely half-half. Okay. What do you think's going to happen? Well, let's think, okay, we can just case it out in some sense. Well, we could make a matrix, right? If we make the matrix, how many strategies does the seller have? 3, right? SS, so exactly. 2, 2, 4, 4. These are the possible strategies of the seller, right? How many strategies does the buyer have? Yeah, 2 times 2 times 2, like 8 in some sense, right? It would be like, one would be to accept them all. The other would be like AA, AARR, etc. Right? Etc. like that. Okay, we could do that, but let's just think about it this way. Okay. You want to just assume, let's just make some assumptions. Say that seller does this, offers 2. Okay? We'll just say this. Say, can we make a Nash equilibrium or a PB&E out of this? If the seller does this, what are the beliefs down here? Uh-huh. Because has to be, right, because if that's the actual problem, this is the actual problem this happens to happen. Okay. Given these beliefs, what does the buyer do there? Do they accept or reject?
Excel.
Yeah, accept, if they accept, they get 1 half a time, 5 half a time, that's 3, if they reject, it's 0. This is a great deal for the buyer, right? They'll definitely accept. Okay. What about here? What do you want to do here? You're gonna put some beliefs down, right? This is that 0-0 situation, right? Probably this actually happens in 0. Some other probably this happens in 0. But we have to put something in there. What do you want to put in there?
I don't know.
Just put half. I don't know, just, I don't know, whatever. Go third, put half. Okay, what goes on in there? If this is the case, what does the buyer do if it's sequential rationality?
They accept.
I think they accept, because, you know, -1, 3, after this one, so yeah, they accept. How about here? Why don't you just make everyone a half? Let's see what happens. Both beliefs go in there. They reject, right? It does reject, right? Instead of -3 and 1, they get 0. Okay, now, what now? There's only a little bit more we have to check, which is what? We check the weak consistency we have. We check sequential rationality. Each of these things, however, we now have to do
Those
the
ones.
seller, right? The seller's choosing here. Now, the seller doesn't know whether we're here. It's not like this, right? Okay, the seller's thinking, okay, if I play 2, I'm getting a 1 half the time and a -3 half the time, right? If I were to play 4, what do I get? I would get 3 half the time and -1 half the time, right? If I'm getting reject, I'm getting 0 half the time. So do I want to deviate? Yeah, I think so, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm getting, right now, I'm getting 1 half the time and -3 half the time, which is like -1. If I were to play 4, I'm getting 1, right? And if I play 6, I'm not getting 0. So, okay, so this is, right? So this is not sequential rational, given this. Okay, so let's figure out. Could we do something else? What would I change?
We could make it work with the beliefs, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You can get to 5 and 6 if it's a likely no scenario on the left side.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, you could maybe make it that person 1 will want to deviate. Yeah, if this is, if person 2, okay, accepts here, then we can make it 1 wants to deviate, right? Even more, right? Okay, let's do that. So can we make that?
Why don't we say
Uh-huh.
the person, like the buyer would, select reject
Here?
right there?
Okay.
Because the probabilities were,
Oh, why did we say that?
yeah.
Because given the probabilities were half-half, if they do accept, it's -3 times a half plus 1 times a half, is -1.
But I'm talking about the buyer.
Yeah, the buyer. The buyer's,
The second.
Oh,
second
yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
all right.
That's one,
Yeah.
okay.
All right, so let's see. Could we make it so that this happens?
Yeah,
We could do that if the beliefs were what?
maybe 0 and 1.
Yeah, right, exactly, right. The beliefs were this, then person 2 is choosing 1 of 0. Exactly, okay. Is this gonna make person 1's choice of playing 2 sequential rational? So is this what I've written down, repeating?
Yeah, we also need to change
Right, okay.
the other part as well, like
Down
this.
here?
Yeah.
So what do you want to make here?
Beliefs. If it was 1 and 0,
Uh-huh.
no, the other way around,
Okay.
I guess, yeah,
Right,
0.
and then,
Um,
then B, yeah.
It's not gonna happen.
Oh, so we,
Yeah.
if this is the case, B is gonna play A, right?
Yeah,
You're gonna accept?
and,
And then, okay, so, yeah, the seller's gonna wanna play 6 or, okay. But I think this way they get something negative, right?
yeah,
If they play 4, they would get, oh, they're getting
-1.
-1. So, okay, so that's the same, right?
Uh-huh.
They're getting half. But if they were playing this one, they would get 3 or something, right? Okay, so this also does not make this an Nash equilibrium. Can we make this a Nash equilibrium in some way? Can we make it? Okay, so in this thing, everyone's doing 2. The buyer's accepting it because it's a great deal for the buyer. The seller gets -1, okay, on average. Half the time it gets 1 and minus 3. Can we make that a Nash equilibrium? Well, we have to keep the seller from deviating to this.
I don't think you can make the rest of them lower than that.
Yeah, I don't think you can. Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, exactly.
Worst is 0.
Yeah, exactly, right. So if the person plays R here, it's going to be 0, right? Person plays A here,
Yeah.
it's going to be like -1 also, right? Yeah. Or this is even worse, right? Here it's 0. If they play here, it's going to be what? 3, right? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll take it back.
1.
No, we're talking about person 1, right? Not person 2. Okay, yeah, I don't think it's possible, right? If the buyer plays R here, it'll be 0 for the seller. Similarly, if the person 2 plays R here, it's 0 for the seller. If the person plays, the buyer accepts, then the seller gets something positive. Yeah, half the time 3, half the time -1. Right? The buyer accepts here, the seller will get even more, like it get 3, right? So I don't think it's possible to get this done. Does that make sense? It's not going to be a case where the seller, if the seller doesn't know what's a good or bad card, the seller's not going to offer 2, okay? Because, half the time the court, it could be worth a lot. Okay, so there's no way that this is going to happen, I think. Does that make sense? Okay. So, what else could we try?
Well, the seller's gonna know.
Huh?
The seller's gonna know, I guess, in terms of what else we could try, like, the seller will have some idea typically of the
Yeah.
quality of the car.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, no, but in this model,
Oh,
we-
saying in here, okay.
saying that they do not know. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
okay.
I think 4 would be.
Let's try 4.
That would do it.
Okay, so let's do that. What would be the beliefs here for 4? They have to be half, That's, yeah, exactly. That's also speak on the equilibrium path. Those actually occur. Those are pinned down by belief consistency. These, however, could be anything. What do you want to make this? Huh? You know, just
Yeah, I'm thinking.
in some sense, in some sense, it actually doesn't really matter what we place here because look, for the buyer, accepting is always better than rejecting, right? But regardless of lease, the buyer says $2, the seller says, buyer says fantastic, right? It's $2, it's always a good deal for me, right? Yeah, domination, yeah, exactly. So it doesn't really matter. You can put on a 1 or 0. No matter what beliefs you hear, the buyer's going to play. We're going to accept it since it's a low price. How about here? What beliefs can you put there?
Let's say 0 and 1.
Okay. Given that the buyer does what? I think accepts, right? Because 1's better than 0. Okay, so let's see. Given the beliefs, the buyer's sequentially rational here, here, and here. Okay, we have belief consistency because this is the only one which is pinned down. You have to check what the seller does. If the seller does 4, the seller is getting what? Half the time 3, half the time -1.
Well,
Right, so that's 1. If the seller were to do 2 instead, they would get -1. Right? Half the time. If they do 6, what would they get? They would get, oh, what is
Oh, the
this?
seller's, right.
Yeah, the sellers, right? They're getting what?
1.
1, right? So do they want, no, hold on.
No.
They're getting 3, right?
But
Yeah. Oh, wait, what is
But
zero?
we set beliefs 0 and 1.
Oh, right, no, but this is what, yeah, the beliefs that, oh, no, hold
Oh,
on.
okay, yeah.
Hold on, okay. No, you're right, take it back. Yeah, we set the beliefs at 0 to 1.
But
No, you're right, you know, the beliefs, we have to use the same beliefs about people. I was thinking half-half, but you're right. If we're here, the seller believes we're here,
So the expected utility is 1.
expected equals 1. Okay. All right. I think that's right, yeah. Can the seller now change from deviating? Deviate, gain by deviating. They're getting 1, if they were doing 6, they're going to get 1. No. So I think this is an equilibrium. In this case, the seller makes an offer of 4, it's accepted. We're saying that the seller were to offer making an offer of 6, it would also be accepted. Okay? Yeah, but we believe it's okay. I kind of want to feel, all right, I think this is okay.
Wait, don't.
Huh?
Oh, no, I'm getting confused.
No, I'm not confused too now. Go ahead.
But don't we have to do half and half?
Yeah, so okay, this is the thing. This is, what's the actual probability of these things happen?
Half and half, is that?
Oh, yeah.
no.
No, okay, no. Forget what I said. Okay. This is 0, 1, right. But the sellers make the decision up here, not here.
Right.
So the relevant, I made a mistake, I'm sorry. The relevant seller beliefs are these, not this. The seller's not averaging this.
Oh, right,
Uh-huh. So,
Because the seller's averaging this versus this.
yeah.
yeah.
I take it back now, okay. The seller's playing 4, half the time they're getting a 3, half the time they're getting -1, right? If they play that.
But it's 3.
If they were to play 2, they're half the game -1, -3. If they were playing 6, half that time they'd be getting this 5
Yeah, then they would
and this 1.
do
And then they would want to deviate. But I'm sorry, I take it, what I said before is wrong.
But it's not
Yeah, so this is not a PB&E. However, I think we can make it a PB&E by saying why.
6.
Huh?
But by selecting 6.
Well,
the
okay,
Seller.
all right, so, okay, yeah. Let's check now. You're thinking, okay, let's see if the seller does 6.
But,
Okay, now,
that
this is gonna be half-half, right? I think we're over time. How about it? Oh my, okay, let's just get stuff. If the seller does this, the buyer's beliefs here must be half-half, right? What is the buyer gonna do? Reject, right? Because 0 is better than -3. All right. That's not gonna work, right? Because
Yeah.
the seller's, for example, beginning over
Yeah,
here,
same thing.
beginning over 0, right? Yeah. So I think,
So there's no way?
well, okay.
We
So,
can work with 4.
I think we can work with 4 a little bit. Okay,
Okay,
so,
yeah.
no, just to be sure, I think what we said is if seller does 6, the buyer will surely reject, right? Right, that's what we said. So, if, yeah, I think it's right, yeah. If the seller, I think this is not gonna
Yep.
work. Okay, if the seller were to do 4, then I think they would want to deviate to 4, because if the buyer accepts. Okay, anyway, let's work with 4 again. So I think the result is, although we didn't prove it, I don't think there's going to be an equilibrium where the seller does 6. I think the only equilibrium is where the seller does 4. Okay, if that's the case, these beliefs must be half-half. Okay. We had to put in something here. Last time we put in what? 0, 1, right? Okay, we basically said if they offer 6, it must be a good car. Okay, that didn't work. Because we said that if with these beliefs, the buyer would accept it, right? So if the seller thinks the buyer will accept an offer at 6, then they will go to 6, right? But I think what we can do is, yeah.
If we can adjust the beliefs so that they would always reject,
Yeah, right,
then
right.
it would work.
And I think it works. Say, for example, I don't know, you want to put half-half here, something like that. I think this makes reject better than accept, right?
Mm.
Because you have zeros, you better minus 3 times half. Okay. Now, the seller, by paying 2, gets something negative. By paying 4, they get 1. By playing 6, they get 0. Yeah, so this is a PP. Okay, so what's the intuition here? The intuition is this. If we know whether the car is good or bad, then we simply pick a price in between our valuations, right? If it's a good car, it's a bad car, I like it, the seller likes it 1, the buyer likes it more, so we just pick something in between 2. If it's a good car, you like it 7, I like it 5, I'll give it to you 6 or both. Okay. What if we both don't know what it is? Then on average, the car is worth, like, I don't know, 3 to me, right? And on average, the car is worth 5 to you, right? Just some random car, I don't know whether it's, but on average, it's worth to you. And so therefore, we're selling this average car. Maybe it's a good car, maybe it's a bad car, neither you or I know. We sell it for. Okay? So, does trade take place? Yeah, well, it takes place all the time, right? Yeah, so sometimes if it's a good car and you sell it for, and the seller, so if it's a bad car and sell it for, the seller gets a good deal out of it, right?
At price 4, yes.
Yeah, exactly, price for. If it's a bad car, then the buyer gets a good deal out of it. But overall, it's worth it. This is kind of like the logic is similar to the rest, going out when it's traveling, right? Like if you knew what it was, you wouldn't go, but if you don't know what it is, you're happy to go, because an average is positive. Right, so if it's a bad car, the seller gets a good deal, the buyer doesn't. If it's a good car, the buyer gets a good deal, the seller doesn't. But overall, both people are willing to do that. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, but
Right.
if all of the offers from buyer would, out of this 3 to 5 range,
Uh-huh.
then there wouldn't be any trade, I guess, right? If, like, the options were 1, 2, and 6,
Oh, right, exactly right. It's important that the 4, exactly right.
yeah.
So that's kind of why I cooked it this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made an offer which is in between 3 and 5,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Otherwise, you're right, it wouldn't make sense. Okay, so the punchline we'll do next time is, if both people know what it is, no problem. If neither person knows what it is, no problem. Okay? But say someone knows, the other person doesn't. That's kind of what makes it interesting. So say that the seller knows that the buyer doesn't, and what you can show is that trade gets down just because of that. So it's like, you either both want to know, both not know, but you don't want to have somebody have information. That's the punchline. Okay. When I teach this, sometimes people say, like, when you go to buy diamonds, like in Antwerp or wherever, like they'll sell like a bunch of diamonds in like a paper bag or something, and no one knows whether they're good or bad because it takes a long time to figure that out.
Yeah.
And so you just sell this like a hole full of diamonds for $20,000, and so it only works because no one.
There's no to go through it.
Exactly right. No, neither the seller nor the buyer, right? If one person could super quickly figure it out, it would not be work, because then you would think you're getting cheated, right? Because they could have figured out how to put the bad diamonds in there and not the good ones.
I'm just wondering where you're gonna find a pack of diamonds to be sold.
That's what they do apparently.
What, like real diamonds, wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's what the story told. It's like a little envelope full of like 50 diamonds or something. I bought my piano from a piano shop in Koreatown, and they say what they do is it's a used Yamaha piano. What they do is they contract with a piano distributor in Japan and say, distributor says, I'll give you a shipping container full of 20 pianos. Maybe some are good, maybe some are not good, who knows? And so they just buy them, fix them up. And that's kind of similar to that. Anyway.